Greetings, my little lovelies. I hope I find you all well again, and as usual, feeling tickly. Now, we've got 3 new videos today. The first one you're going to see is all about end-of-life visions, and that's very interesting. The second video is about a haunted painting owned by a Hollywood actor previously, no less. So that'll be interesting to get your thoughts on that. And the third and final one is about JFK and his limousine that he was shot in. I'm also interested to see what you make of that. So, I shall stop waffling on, and we shall all crack on with it, shall we? Richard Paul Evans is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. Richard was sitting on the bed next to his grandmother as she lay dying. He said, "I witnessed a curious thing. Earlier that day, hospice had put my grandmother on a morphine drip, and ever since he had arrived, she seemed unaware of her surroundings and mumbling. Then suddenly she stopped mumbling and looked up to the corner of the room. For more than a minute she was silent, and her eyes were focused on one single point. Then I heard her say very clearly, 'No, not yet.' She died several hours later." While there is much debate about what happens during the final minutes of life, reported end-of-life visitation experiences are extremely common. In Richard speaking, he said, "I found the opportunity to address hundreds of hospice workers. Never once has any of them told me they don't believe that the dying have visitations. And if anyone would know, it would be them," he said. So why isn't this phenomenon addressed more openly? When his father-in-law, a confessed atheist, was on his deathbed from terminal heart conditions, his eyes suddenly widened. Because of the tubes down his throat, he was unable to speak, but he was clearly attentive, following something across the room with his eyes. His wife, Kerry, was at his side. "Dad, did you see someone?" she asked. He nodded. "Is it Grandma?" He shook his head. "Do you know who it is?" Again, he shook his head. Minutes after he died, his nurse said to me, "I knew he was going to die. When they start getting visitations, it's their time." I asked if she'd seen it before. She said yes, many times. Reported end-of-life experiences are predominantly categorized as 3 types: out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and end-of-life dreams and visions. In a study of end-of-life phenomenon, scientists at Kansas College interviewed 66 patients receiving end-of-life care in a hospice. The study found that most patients reported at least one vision per day, and that the visions involved dead friends and relatives. The researchers wrote, as participants approached death, comforting dreams or visions of the deceased became more prevalent. The impact of pre-death experiences on dying individuals and their loved ones can be profoundly meaningful and typically lessen the fear of dying, making transition from life to death easier for those experiencing it. Still, in spite of all this evidence, there are many who still do not believe. An article in Salon magazine states, "Despite thousands of testimonials and hundreds which have been corroborated, many materialist scientists cling to the notion that out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences are located in the brain and are not real." Afterlife deniers have offered a list of possible scientific explanations for end-of-life phenomenon that include excess carbon dioxide creating a white light and tunnel, endorphins released under stress, lack of oxygen, hallucinations, all which may create the illusion of an out-of-body experience. However, none of this explains how people who are brought back from death are able to explain things that happen in other rooms, conversations, etc. A good example of this is the famous and well-documented case of Maria. After being resuscitated after a heart attack, Maria told a social worker that during the time that her heart had stopped, she had gone outside the hospital. She described in great detail a shoe she'd seen on the edge of a hospital window on the 3rd floor. The doubtful but curious social worker not only found the shoe, but also realized that there was no other way of Maria to have known all the details of the shoe and its surroundings, as she had described. Many believe that as our medical science allows us to bring more people back from death, we will only see and validate more of these experiences. For those seeking truth about the existence of an afterlife, an honest inquiry into end-of-life phenomenon is a good place for you to start. Dolls have become such a universal form of terror that they don't even need to be physical objects to frighten you. One doll, in particular, is a great example of this. The two-dimensional rendering sold by an anonymous eBay seller in the year 2000. Artist Bill Stoneham originally painted the scene in 1972, and it is by and large the definition of creepy. The painting centers on a boy, a near life-size doll, that is leaning against the post next to him. Both are on a porch in front of a large window, and behind them, in the darkness of the home, you can see various small white hands reaching out. This is quite a haunting piece of art. It was once owned by Hollywood actor John Marley before landing in the hands of an anonymous eBay seller. In their posting, the seller claimed that the characters featured in the painting would shift and change position in the night. At one point, the doll even held a gun to the boy. And on another night, a motion-sensitive camera supposedly caught the boy crawling out of the painting. Those who looked at the photo reached out to the seller and shared odd and terrifying experiences that they had while simply looking at the photo. According to the BBC report about the painting's sale, viewers stated they were overtaken by violent illness, fainting, children screaming upon seeing the painting, and feeling gripped by an unseen entity. On the artist's website, he notes that both the owner of the gallery where the painting was displayed and the Los Angeles Times art critic who reviewed my show were dead within a year of the show. The painting is currently in storage at a Grand Rapids, Michigan gallery owned by the eBay member who purchased it in 2000. This car is said to be haunted by a former president. The SS-100X was the Secret Service name given to President John F. Kennedy's navy blue 1961 Lincoln 74A convertible. The Lincoln featured $200,000 worth of modifications, but oddly enough, no bulletproofing. There were several domes that fit over the top of the convertible, but all made the cabin extremely hot without adding any real protection. It was in this Lincoln that Kennedy, First Lady Jackie Kennedy, the Texas governor and his wife sat on November the 22nd, 1963, when 3 shots were fired at the president. Surprisingly, the Lincoln was kept in service another 8 years after Kennedy's death. A company called Hess and Eisenhardt added reinforcements and safety measures that were missing when Kennedy rode in the car, apparently much to the annoyance of the president's ghost. The Lincoln was outfitted with titanium armor plating, bullet-resistant glass, and a permanent bulletproof roof. It was also painted black by the incoming president, Lyndon Johnson, who thought the original navy blue paint would be too reminiscent of the assassination. In 1967, the presidential limo was replaced, but the 1961 Lincoln was kept in a fleet for less important duties, until it retired to the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan in 1978. The car is still on display there and is rumoured to be haunted. An apparition dressed in grey has been seen standing near the car, especially in late November. Welcome back, my little lovelies. Hope you enjoyed those 3 little videos. I enjoyed putting them together for you. Now, if you've enjoyed what you've seen and you're a first-time viewer, as they say, hit the subscribe button. For those of you that have subscribed, we'd like to say a big thank you because the channel has grown quite a lot over the past few months. So, from us to you guys, thank you. Hit the subscribe button, you new viewers. Right, that's all from me for this episode. I'd like to say stay safe. The weather's not very good, so stay warm. So until next time, ta-ta, my little lovelies. Ta-ta.